Hi, and welcome to our latest interview. And today we've got the pleasure of the company of Judith Todd from Homestyle for You. See, Judith, I did stumble over the words there. I don't know why that happens. So anyway, what we're going to do today is we're going to find out a little bit about why Judith does what she does, how she arrived there in terms of her journey, and it's quite an unusual one, I think, for what she does. And also, we'll dig a little bit into her thoughts on networking in general. So I'm going to kick straight off, Judith, with the first question, which is, what was the spark that prompted you to set this business up? And maybe go back a little bit in time about what led you to this point.
Well, firstly, hi Ian, and thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Yeah.
Going back, well, it is quite a while, right? I was originally a solicitor, that was my career. And as with a lot of things, I got to a point where I sort of had a bit of a moment. One of those days when you sort of think, oh, I've had enough of this.
Yeah.
And it was a bit of a crossroads because I'd worked during my career for about 5 different firms around the southeast. And I had one of those days when it wasn't going well. And I thought to myself, well, you know what? Is it the firm I'm working for, or is it the job in itself? You know, the whole legal profession. And I actually, probably for the first time I'd asked myself this question, I answered honestly and thought, no, it's the job. It had changed a lot since I first qualified. And I wasn't enjoying it anymore. And also, it was the only career I'd had. And there was an element of, no, I want to do something different. Still saw a number of years working ahead of me. So I thought, yeah, no, it's time to think about doing something else. And, think, well, what else would I do? And I've always been interested in property and interiors. I had various properties. I'd sort of done some decorating, made soft furnishings, all that sort of thing. So I signed up to do a City and Guilds course in interior design. That was the first step on the journey, as it were. Was originally looking for a job within the industry. Didn't happen. So I then relocated because I was still down south at this time.
Yeah.
From the northwest originally. So decided to move back up north, still as a lawyer, and continued the search for an interior design position. Couldn't find one. Set up the business, but didn't really do anything with it at that stage because I was working full time and I couldn't see how I could sort of do the two. So sort of parked it for a while. And I came across training for home staging, which is what I'm doing now. I had watched a program called The House Doctor. Now, that's going back quite a few years now, I'll admit, an American lady called Anne Maurice.
Yeah.
And watching that program, it just made so much sense. She'd go into properties that were on the market and sort of say, oh, well, we'll change this, change that, and just transform them to make them more sellable. So it seemed an obvious thing to do in terms of it's no brainer if you're the owner of a property. So I did the training for that, and sort of to cut a long story a bit shorter, I was made redundant in 2011.
Okay.
And so it was then, right, focus on the business. But as a lot of people do when they set up a business, they think, well, I need to have some money coming in. So they perhaps find some sort of part-time job. And I started doing viewings for a local estate agent.
Yeah.
And then for some reason decided, oh, I'll become a full-time sales negotiator. So that's what I ended up. So this is a bit of a zigzag journey. So I spent a number of years working for a firm of estate agents as a sales negotiator.
Well, that actually makes sense to me.
Well, yeah, it does. And it's given me a lot of an insight into the whole buying and selling process and conducting viewings, taking people round properties. So as it's turned out, yes, it was a very valuable experience from the perspective of what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
So I was doing that until 2018 and decided that that wasn't really me. I was working for one of the corporates and that didn't suit me. So at that point, I moved back to the Wirral, focused 100% on the business and also property renovation because I enjoy the renovation side of it. So that's the bit of the tortuous journey, is how I've got to where I am now, doing what I'm doing now, which is the home staging.
Yeah. I couldn't imagine what your next move is. Opera singer, maybe something completely.
No, I don't foresee any more changes in terms of career.
Well, I think if you found something you enjoy, that's the most important thing, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I do think of doing some more renovations in the future as well, because I do enjoy that side of it.
Excellent. Okay, well, let's talk about your business in terms of, well, what's your proudest moment in business so far? And then I've got another question. It could be the same answer. Which job or contract win can you remember as being particularly exciting? The type where you just want to punch the air and say yes when you get it. So it could be a different thing. So there's two questions in one.
Well, it's a good question. One of my proudest moments is actually the first project that I did.
Yeah.
Which was a very nice penthouse apartment in Didsbury, Manchester.
Yeah.
And it had been rented out. So it was part furnished. There were the main things, your big items of furniture, beds, a couple of sofas. And it wasn't in bad condition. It just wasn't very exciting.
Yeah.
And I can, I had some of the walls painted with a feature wall, bit of colour, some wallpaper. That was one of the things I did, apart from arranging for it to be cleaned, brought in all the accessories, soft furnishings and stuff to dress it properly.
Yeah.
And I can remember one day going in and they were putting up wallpaper on one wall in the dining area of the kitchen diner. And I just had this, this is going to work.
Yeah.
And actually that property sold to the first viewer for the asking price. So that's the highlight. But I'm also proud of a job that I did more recently in Llandudno.
Okay.
And that was a 4-bedroom property that had been refurbed, very lovely Victorian property, completely empty.
Yeah.
And I staged every single room. So that's 4 bedrooms, living room, dining room, a snug, arranged for rental furniture to be brought in, went out, bought all the stuff to dress it, planned a colour scheme, and that's important. You need to have cohesion.
Yeah.
So that a slight theme that takes you round so that the whole appearance of the property is cohesive. And that was a very big job to do. And I'd never done one that was fully empty. So to do something on that scale, that was another moment that I'm proud of.
Excellent. Was that the job or contract win that you really wanted?
Well, yes, I suppose it was, in the sense that it was, doing the empty property and, taking it from start to finish.
Yeah.
So you could say that was, yeah.
It was a chance for full autonomy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
A blank canvas.
It was very much a blank canvas, and sort of working out from the start, well, what was the theme going to be? What was the look that I was trying to create? Getting the right things to go in there, and yeah, I think it really came together at the end.
Excellent. Well, I'm going to do something unusual. I've not done this before in any of these interviews, because I want to dig into what you actually do. Before I do that, let me see if this works. I'm going to share my screen and hopefully show some photographs of your work. So now I'm going to ask you the question. Can you tell us a little bit more about exactly what you do in terms of home staging? And I thought these photos would help describe it.
Well, the real point of staging is that the way people buy property has changed so much over the recent years. It's all done online.
Yeah.
So people are scrolling through their feed, and there's other properties out there. So you need your property to stand out in a good way, and to stop the scrolling, so that people will want to take a look. And also, if you think about Instagram, and there's programs like Selling Sunset, and people are seeing amazing properties, so the bar has been raised. So that's really a starting point as to why staging matters. So what it is, it's basically assessing what things can be done to maximize the potential in a property. It's normally a person's biggest asset, so they want to make the most of it, and the aim is that you will sell more quickly and you will sell for a better price. And the analogy I like to use is when you sell your car, what you normally do is you wash it. You take all the rubbish out, all the crisp packets, the tissues, all that stuff.
How did you know?
It's true, and you hoover it.
Yeah.
You might even take it and have it valeted.
Yeah.
And you do that because you think you'll get more money for it.
Yeah.
So it's the same sort of principle, but on a much bigger scale.
I guess your first job is to stop people scrolling, isn't it?
Yeah,
Grab
exactly.
their attention. And this for me grabs my attention immediately. I mean, it looks pristine, it looks inviting. I could imagine sitting down with the magazine and grabbing a cup of that coffee. and it's I'm no expert on, but the colours really work. I'm not. It just looks good to me, even though I can't tell you why.
Well,
So,
that's the point. It's looking at enticing. It's drawing people in, helping people think, oh yes, I'd like to live there, and themselves helping them imagine themselves live there, because a lot of people can't. This is the point. A lot of people can't visualize.
yeah,
And that's particularly true if you've got an empty property. It's not visually appealing, and also people can't picture, well, what would I do in this room, and what would I put there, and where would I put everything? So it really helps from that perspective.
yeah. I mean, it was good. We were, for those watching now, myself and Judith were at an event the other night, and it was fascinating hearing from a photographer. And your photos have got all the elements that we heard from that photographer about how you make, like that. This one's got it's a room with a view, isn't it?
It was a beautiful view. It actually looked out across to a local cricket ground. So yeah, absolutely. And what the photographer was saying is part of, why you take professional photographs, is because you have what is in the property looks attractive, but it's got to be photographed in the right way. And sometimes the photographs and they're not, we've all seen on things like Rightmove shots, and there's the toilet seat left up and a messy bed, and
Yeah.
why?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really interesting to see both. I was seeing both perspectives the other night, because the photographer in question was saying it's important to stage your property, so all of the kind of placement and the design of the picture is just as important to have it staged as a good quality photographer.
And it isn't just for empty properties. I work with occupied properties as well, and there it's making the most of what's there. It could be moving the furniture around so that it works better in the room. So it's not all about. So it does work for properties that are already occupied, and just tweaking them a bit.
Yeah, I mean,
Their best.
I must admit, all of these photographs, I just want to move in. And it looks ready to live in, doesn't it? And
yeah,
particularly comfortable.
Yeah.
I think I've come to the end of that, but I thought it was important to show people what you were talking about as you were talking about it. Right, so I'm going to move on to the next bit is about how you win business, and I suppose it's trying to find out your experiences of networking. I was wondering if I could ask you, is there a story behind the best job you've won as a result of networking, which can be anything from word of mouth recommendations, or from going out to structured networking events?
Yeah. Well, the job that I've just been talking about, and it came through a photographer I knew through another networking group, and it's not the photographer we've just been talking about, as it happens.
Yeah.
And he was talking to the chap that had renovated the property, was actually doing some business shots for him. They got talking, as you do, found out, we're talking about the property, and the developer sort of asked the photographer, do you know anyone who does staging?
Yeah.
So yeah, and that's how I got that referral.
Yeah. Okay, so in terms of networking, how would you describe yourself? Are you a networking extrovert or an introvert? And I'm going to add another little element to this. Do you think it matters?
To take it in order, yeah, I am a networking introvert.
Okay.
I'm sort of one of those people, I'm fine if there are people there I know. And when I first start, but what I find very difficult when I go to networking is talking to people that I haven't met before.
Yeah.
Although I'm better at it than I was. And this trying to break in, if there's a group of people talking, you know, is that they're clustered, you know, 2 or 3, and how do you sort of join in the conversation, as it were? So, but I think it is important. I do believe very much that networking is important. And it's not just a question of turning up, asking people what they do, handing out your business cards. You've got to, I've come to appreciate over the last few years, you have to work hard at networking. You have to build those relationships, so that people get to know you, they like you, they trust you. But yeah.
There's kind of a tipping point where once people have gone past that tipping point, they will refer you. And it doesn't happen with one quick handshake and a business card exchange.
No.
You need to be a little bit more depth to it than that.
Yeah, and interestingly, slight diversion, I did a LinkedIn training course with yourself and Pam. And as a result of that, I got to know a business coach. And I, you know, was engaging with her posts and everything like that. But it was about 12 months later when I actually contacted her and started working with her. So it's not, business doesn't necessarily happen overnight.
No, it doesn't. I mean, some things can, because you have, I don't know, you could be a letting agent with a tenant with a leak, and it's going everywhere. You're not as, you need a plumber, and you need a plumber now. You're not going to wait 6 months to build trust with them before you appoint them. But I think on the subject of introvert and extrovert, I can completely relate to you, because I don't like to break into groups either, particularly with people I don't like. And I think that's why I prefer the table format and then mixing it up, so that you're with a small, manageable, less intimidating group to begin with.
Yeah.
And then when you mix it up a bit later, you do get to meet other people. And I think that's important for the introverts, so that they get value from an event. But there's been a lot of events I've been to where it's just a crowd at a bar. I'll tend to stay in one corner and not come out. So I'll speak to 1 or 2 people, but I won't work the room. So I think it's what was your answer to the question of does it matter whether you're an introvert or an extrovert? What would you say?
That's a really tricky question, because I suppose for extroverts, it's easier for them to just go up to people and start talking.
Yeah.
But do the introverts do they tend to sort of listen more? I don't know. They're not so pushing themselves. They're not pushing themselves forward, perhaps quite so much. I don't know what
Yeah,
they are.
no, I'm just interested in your take on it, and it's. I think for me, there are a number of elements. I think an introvert will tend to listen more, which is a really good foundation for building a relationship. And they always say, famous TV interview hosts hardly say a word. They just ask the right questions, and they're seen as wonderful people just by listening. But I also think I don't think introverts are as hampered or handicapped as people think from being an introvert, because I also think you have different chemistry with different people. I don't think you need to be an extrovert to get on.
No.
I think it can help in some ways, but I don't think introverts can't do as well. In fact, I think they can sometimes do better than an extrovert. But anyway, it was just an interesting thought.
Yeah.
I didn't. I just thought of that question just then. So, just a quick one: is the future online networking, in-person networking, or is a blend the better of the two?
I think a blend is better. I do like in-person events. I do like meeting people in person. I think doing online network helps because you can get to know it. It does if you're in a group, you can almost get to know people a bit before you actually then meet them in person, which makes it a bit easier. And it's very, I mean, let's face it, it's quite convenient to do online.
Yeah.
You don't have the travel time and all that, and worrying about, well, how do I park at this particular venue or anything. So I think the combination is really a good idea.
Yeah, because I think one of the things that I kind of like about blending it is that, particularly with monthly events, it's like all of the people on your table this month, you might meet them again, even if you go to every event between now and September. And then that's the next time that you actually speak. And there's a long gap in between. And that's why I like the blend with online, because you can get to meet those people again. I know WhatsApp groups are kind of a Marmite thing, and some people hate them, some people love them. I think they work, so you can't discount them.
Yeah.
But it sort of gives it, and it's another. I hate marketing jargon, but one of the marketing jargon phrases that I hate the most is touch points. But it does kind of help, because you get multiple touch points every time you take part in one of the daily conversations. You're on the radar again with everyone who reads that, and they get to know a little bit more about Judith. And also the Zoom events. You get to see and hear people speak again, and in a group setting like a Zoom, you get to hear from everyone. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent there. Right, so in general then, what tips would you give someone who's about to take part in networking for the first time?
Well, simply turn up is a starting point. But one thing that I think helps, if you're going for first time, go up to somebody who's on their own.
Yeah.
Because I think that's less intimidating.
Yeah.
And do some research before. interlocal networking groups. Think
Yeah.
about what type of group you want to be in. And don't give up just because the first one that you go to you don't gel and it doesn't feel right and you feel awful. Persevere with it.
Yeah, because I suppose you get back. It's a cheesy analogy, I know, but it's about sowing seeds, isn't it?
Yeah.
They're not all going to, flower instantly. So you've got to keep on sowing seeds and start to flower and grow.
Yeah.
Well, you do realise, Judith, that this whole interview has been leading up to this final question. It's the hottest topic in construction and property at the moment, and it's become a really serious issue, particularly because we're now a divided community, because it was going unanimously one way.
It was.
There has been signs that it could be going in a different direction. So without further ado, it's the big question: are you for or against garden gnomes? Whatever you choose, tell us why.
I'm actually for garden gnomes. I think they're just a little fun element. As long as you don't have too many,
Yeah.
You sort of hide them in sort of unexpected places in your garden or your patio, or sort of
Okay.
and then people just sort of come across them by accident, and you can't not smile when you come across a garden gnome.
Well, Judith, I think that you do have another career in you, and it could be garden gnome staging. It seems like you've thought it through. There must be a science to it then. How you place your garden gnomes.
Yeah, no, I hadn't thought about that one.
Yeah. Well, there you go. There's a diversification. Let's see if we can drum up some garden gnome business for you then. But yeah, I mean, thank you very much for your time today, Judith. I'm gonna, if you've seen any of the other interviews, you probably know that I don't have any fancy graphics or ending music. It just kind of ends quite suddenly. So unless you've got anything you want to add.
Well, just to say thank you again for inviting me and giving me this opportunity to talk about what I do.
Yeah.
So really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, it's been a great interview. I've really appreciated your time as well, Judith. So thanks very much. And I will end it there.